Greetings, fellow simians. It's that time of year again. Every September, I draw a dragon for my dragon-loving wife's birthday. I think I say some variation of this every year, but since no one knows who I am or pays much attention to this channel that I rarely update or to what I do in general, I always feel the need to recap what this is all about just in case some new random person stumbles over here. My wife loves dragons. She works in IT, staring at a boring monitor all day. So at some point several years ago, I decided that I would draw her dragons on her birthday that she could use as the desktop wallpaper thingy on her monitor. And thus my little tradition was born. At first, the idea was just to draw dragons. No, specific rhyme or reason behind it. But over the years, I started crafting this little backstory in my head. Basically, there was this planet that the dominant species was some kind of dragon or dragon-like creature, and their planet was dying because of, their own actions or just natural events, asteroids, expanding sun, whatever. The bottom line is they were an advanced species. They had the technology or the magic or whatever to leave their planet and find a new homeworld, and they did. And they found a planet that was sort of in its infancy. They established themselves, outcompeted all the native species, and or caused some kind of environmental problems with the planet, and basically knocked themselves back to their equivalent of the Stone Age. And over the ensuing millennia, they evolved, or maybe it was, I haven't decided if it would be a natural occurrence or if they intervened and intentionally adapted themselves. But either way, they spread up into different pockets. Some form of evolution happens, and they fill all the different biological and ecological niches on the planet. Basically, it becomes a planet where all of the common ancestors for all the species on it are this one dragon species. Anyway, I don't know if I'll ever do anything with this concept and story besides these illustrations for my wife. I do kind of have this rough idea for like a field guide, like some alien explorer winds up going into this planet and, just like good old field guides back in the 1800s and Darwin's time and stuff, traveling around, doing little sketches in a notebook, taking notes, observing, classifying, that sort of thing. Might be kind of a fun book to put together and publish at some point. Maybe it'll be a story and become a graphic novel or something. I don't know. Just one of the many ideas kicking around in my head that I don't know if I will ever have time to do. So despite these effectively being finished illustrations, you could say, little sidebar here, I never feel like any of my art is done. I always feel like I could continue to push it and change it and do different things with it. And at some point, you just kind of have to say it's done and move on to the next thing. But I always kind of have in the back of my head that I want to go back to everything I've ever drawn and redraw it better. It's kind of a mental illness, I guess, and I suspect many creative types have this problem. But anyway, so I view these illustrations as almost like rough drafts, despite how finished, quote unquote, they are. I wind up making most of these dragons. They're basically chimeras, right? They're two or more different animals that kind of get mushed together to create a new animal. In this case, it's a dragon and some species from Earth. In this case, a porcupine. Previous years, it's been, snails or polar bears or elephants or, a bunch of other things. And I keep a running list of other combinations I want to try down the road. But I think because of the nature of this little project I do, I don't spend a lot of time doing iterations first. I kind of go with the flow and just see where my brain goes, and I just push it as far as I can. But sometimes that kind of winds up looking like everything's kind of like cut and pasted together instead of maybe naturally flowing the way certain anatomical elements would work or whatever. So if I do ever do something more with this, like that field guide I mentioned, I will probably return to all of these that I have done over the years and do some different thumbnails and studies and change anatomy and proportions and all that. But we'll see. I did, for this particular illustration, I kind of created a couple of brushes, but the only one that was really noticeably used was the one for the porcupine quills. I did create a fur brush of sorts, because porcupines kind of have an underlaying fur layer, I guess, in addition to their outer needles that, release when they jab into something. But that fur brush didn't quite work the way I wanted it to for this application. I've tried making a bunch of other fur brushes. I'm still experimenting with that. But at a certain point, I just kind of had to give up on the notion of having a brush that would speed up the process and just do a lot of the painting of the brush of the fur and hair by hand, with the exception of that porcupine quill brush, which was pretty straightforward and simple. It's just I made a brush tip that has some white and black banding like some porcupine quills do, and then it tapers at the end, so it kind of naturally looks like a quill shape. So it was really simple to make, and I think was fairly effective. I'm kind of, one of the things that I like about working on these is that it kind of takes me outside of my comfort zone sometimes because of the things that I want to try to accomplish. It forces me to reevaluate like my digital workflow. That it pushes me stylistically sometimes. I'm always trying to improve my skills, which, that's kind of what you're supposed to do in life. But this is just like, a way for me to do that, or it forces me to do that. I'm always trying to, I'm searching for a particular visual stylistic look that I haven't quite gotten to yet. Something that incorporates my love of pen and ink drawing and grayscale, but also, hatching and pencil work and pencil shading. Colors too. I like working in colors. My wife happens to like my black and white art more, which is why all of these dragons, other than the first few, have all been black and white. I think it's a little less jarring as a background when she's working and it's on her screen. But yeah, there's just a lot of different traditional styles, traditional media styles and textures and things that I really like, that I've been struggling for years to try to find a way to kind of meld them all together in a way that makes my brain happy. Not quite there yet, but I guess I'm making progress. So I think we're getting kind of close to the end of this. Yep, there we go. We got some zoom-ins to show all of the details and textures and things that I include that you can't see unless you zoom in. Another one of those mental illnesses of mine. So yeah, another year, another dragon. Happy birthday to my wife. And as always, do what the monkey says and enjoy the ads.